Maxwell, going quickly back to the leadership stuff. If Maxwell and Carney have pictures together, isn't that automatically excluded? Shouldn't that automatically exclude him from being in the running? Like, why is he still in the running? The Liberal caucus is cool with this. Sir, could you explain the Ghislaine Maxwell picture? Oh, nothing to worry about there. Next question. Okay, but that doesn't explain it at all. Yeah, next question. They're okay with this? It's weird, right? It's very, very strange. And the Carney campaign doesn't want to answer questions about it. So very, very interesting. There's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. We've got to talk about the prorogation and the federal court coming back, ruling in favor of the Justice Center. I think it's the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Did I get that? Yeah, I think I did. So they ruled in favor and said, yeah, we've got to expedite this. It's a 30-odd page report. It's pretty beefy. I've got a synopsis of it if you're interested. Brian Lilly says, a pressing public hearing in a matter of grave concern, the federal court will hear on the matter of the proroguing of Parliament in light of the tariff threat. So because this is a serious issue, the federal court is going to hear it. And here is an update from the JCCF. Here we go.
Determination of the issue of whether this case is urgent and should proceed to an expedited hearing. As many of you may remember, we were asking the court to make that finding by way of a motion that we filed in court last week. The Crown's lawyers got their response into the court on Thursday of last week, and here we are 2 days later with a decision, which is very, very fast, and I compliment and I'm very grateful to the court for their urgency in coming to this conclusion in this reason. So ultimately, I'm pleased to report that the court did find that the case is urgent, and it did set an expedited timetable, which means that we will be hearing this matter on February 13th and 14th of next month. So we will be in court in less than a month to determine whether or not the Prime Minister's prorogation of Parliament was lawful or not. And so there's a timetable in the decision here that sets out the various steps that have to be taken for each party to, submit its affidavits and legal briefs and things like that.
Fundamentally, I think the argument is twofold. They've got legal precedent in the United Kingdom for having a legal nullification of a proroguing for a similar kind of thing. And the similar kind of thing, in this case, in Canada's case, is the political party collapsing, needing a leadership race, the leader leaving. How can, if the Liberals don't have confidence in themselves and their leadership, and they need to replace the leadership, et cetera, shouldn't that trigger an immediate election to a degree, right? Especially when they're using prorogue as a trick to avoid a confidence vote that they would certainly lose in the House, right? Is that a legal maneuver? And so we're seeing, right? There's a little bit more here, and I think it's worthwhile listening to, so we'll listen to just a bit more.
So I just wanted to maybe read a few paragraphs for those of you who are interested. In my view, they are encouraging. Number one, one of the issues that we were talking about in the motion was whether or not this proceeding is truly urgent, whether or not there's going to be any practical benefit to the case if things drag on until past March 24th, which is the day that Parliament is supposed to be resuming. One of the things that the court said here, I'm reading it, paragraph 56, I'll quote you. This is what Justice Crampton said, Chief Justice Crampton said. He said, if the underlying application is not scheduled to be heard on an expedited basis, there will be no opportunity for Canada's elected representatives to debate this serious threat and take any action that they may consider appropriate for over 2 months following President-elect Trump's assumption of office. Next paragraph. The fact that the executive branch of government will continue to function during the period that Parliament is prorogued is beside the point. That's what the Chief Justice has just said. The fact remains that there would be no opportunity for Parliament to carry out its constitutional functions including by availing itself of legislative tools at its disposal for a significant period during which Canada will likely face a grave challenge. So all of that went to our point that we made to say that, hey, there's a grave threat right now. President-elect Trump is about to take office, and he's threatened to impose a massive tariff on all of our exports. Parliament needs to be in session, was what we were saying. And it seems to me that the court here in these paragraphs was sympathetic to those concerns.
We'll leave it there. There's other things he highlights, but you'll have to check it out. Links in the description. The other thing is I wrote up, or I got ChatGPT to write up an article about the 30-page decision. You can read the decision here. Also, you can read the decision from the original link. It leads to the same place. This leads to a landing page, and then download the PDF. And then from my website, you can download it directly if you're interested. But fundamentally, we have to wait until February 13th and 14th, and that seems like a long time, especially when Mel Joly is talking about severe economic damage to Canada. This is from yesterday. I'm not going to play it again, but they're going over all the really, really massive negative potential consequences of this tariff coming in. People don't understand how bad this will be, and it seems like it's happening tomorrow, and it seems like the Liberals are more interested in their leadership race, and we're in the wizard circle of the leadership race. Like, we're all trapped in this wizard circle. Right. There's nothing we can do about it. We're going through this leadership race, whether we're interested in it or not, because the winner goes on to be the prime minister, and that's pretty crazy, right? Some people are saying there's every chance Trudeau just cancels the leadership race and rescinds his resignation. I don't know about that. It seems like he's on the way out, but at the same time, the person or people on deck who we're getting have pictures of themselves with Ghislaine Maxwell, right? Jeffrey Epstein's madam. Really? Are we seriously doing this? Okay, fine. Great. Cool. I love prime ministers who are in deep with the Maxwells. What? Is it very different than the Bronfmans, really? Bernie says, facial recognition. We've got to talk about NWO, and we're going to talk about Trump and tariffs, and then we're going to talk about the leadership race. And I feel like I have to include the leadership race stuff in the main show today. Yesterday, like, it's just been taking too long talking about Trump and all the other stuff that I've not been talking about, Carney and Freeland in the main show, because it's just been too long. So I hope I can get it into the main show today. Anyway, regardless, Bernie says, facial recognition. This is the United Kingdom, when some people are stopped for covering their faces in front of facial recognition cameras. Here is this interaction.
Yeah. You right? Yeah. Can I picture of you? No, thanks. Okay. Why are you covering your face like that? Why are you following me? Sorry? Why are you following? Talk to you, that's all. Just because you'll come through an area where there's a facial recognition van, you've covered your whole face up like that. Well, maybe it's... see your face? Maybe it's because I don't consent to being on there. Oh, right. Okay, why is that? Because I think it's a bit of a government overreach. Oh, right, okay. That's fine. Can we take your details down, is that alright? Nope. No? Okay. Where are you from? No comment. Alright, okay. Why are you so concerned about it? No comment.
Do you not think it's a good idea?
No.
You don't? So by getting facial recognition of people, to get identification of people, you don't think that's a good?
No, the thing is, we live in a country which is free. We don't have to carry ID. So we don't live in a state where the police have the right to see your ID willy-nilly. This takes away my freedom because you're IDing me without asking.
Do you know how that actually works?
No, I'm not interested in your propaganda.
Oh, right, okay.
It is propaganda. You're going to say, oh, it's good for crime. Yeah, maybe on 1-2% of the time. But in exchange, we have to give up some freedoms. But this will not identify you unless
you're wanted by
the police for specific offences that we're looking for
at the time. That's what you... Yeah. When you post on social media and somebody gets offended and you're wanted then, and the facial recognition camera gets that thought criminal, right? How dare that thought criminal think about things that are not supposed to be thought about. So facial recognition cameras, and then police to badger people who don't like the facial recognition cameras. Don't you feel safer, citizen? Why not? Why? Oi! Can I take down your information right here? Don't walk away from me. Right? So it's a very interesting, very authoritarian, concerning situation to have happen. Still Roaming says, here's the reason I've always thought, or at least hoped, that Speaker Johnson was a mole. All we needed was one person willing to testify that Biden was illegitimate and not not the one giving orders to bring down the entire House of Cards. This means his entire cabinet was knowingly committing sedition or treason against the United States of America. This is under NWO, although we're going to talk about this again under Trump because this is a pretty wild story. It's 3.5 minutes, and this is him recounting a story of the Speaker of the House. He's third in line for the presidency after the vice president, okay? Not being able to access the president. And when he had a one-on-one meeting with the president did not remember legislation that he had signed 3 weeks prior, cutting off the EU from liquid natural gas, LNG. And he left that meeting with, quote, fear and loathing. I think that's what he says. It's crazy. It's a crazy story. Here we go.
I do stand by it, and I say this without any personal animus at all. I mean, in some ways, I actually kind of feel sorry for Joe Biden. I mean, he's in the twilight years of his life. He is not, obviously, has not been in charge for some time. And I know this by personal observation, and now the whole world knows it. And it's been very, very concerning to me over the last, year and a half since I've had this position. Can you tell us a story when you say personal observation? What kind of thing did you see? It's public now because the Wall Street Journal got it and put it on the front page. But January a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, I had been asked, I became Speaker in October 2023, and there were all sorts of big national security concerns and everything going on, and I started requesting a meeting with the President because, I'm kind of old school. I'm a constitutional law guy. The Speaker of the House should be able to talk to the President, especially in times of great national interest and calamity. But they wouldn't let me meet with him, and his staff kept giving excuses. This went on for like 8 or 9 weeks. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, he doesn't have time. What are you talking about? I'm second in line of the presidency. He has time. I need to talk to him. We had, I can't say the classified parts, but we had some big national concerns at the time that I was losing sleep over. Finally, I just went to the Hill Press Corps and I said, the President is not being allowed to meet with the Speaker. There's a problem. So they started putting pressure on him. Long story short, they finally relented. They invited me to the White House. I show up and I realize it's actually an ambush because it's not just me and the President. It's also Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem, the CIA director, everybody. And then, so I walked in the Oval and, I know what this is. They're going to hotbox the Speaker on Ukraine funding. That's what it was. This is probably third week of January. We sit down, we're in the midst of it, and the whole conversation, and I'm going, we don't need to have this conversation. The President reaches over just like this. We're sitting right next to the fireplace in the Oval, and he grabs my arm and he says, the Speaker and I just need a couple minutes together. Would y'all just leave us alone? And I looked up on the faces of some of the staff standing around the wall, and they're like, oh, no, he did it. So he called it. He's the Commander-in-Chief. So everybody leaves, and he and I are standing awkwardly in the middle of the Oval Office, right over the rug by that coffee table. And I said, Mr. President, thanks for the moments. This is very important. I got some big national security things I need to talk to you about that I've heard, and I think you know, and what do we do? But first, real quickly, Mr. President, can I ask you a question? I cannot answer this from my constituents in Louisiana. Sir, why did you pause LNG exports to Europe? Like, I don't understand, liquefied natural gas is in great demand by our allies. Why would you do that? Because you understand, we just talked about Ukraine. You understand you're fueling Vladimir Putin's war machine because they got to get their gas from him, And he looks at me, stunned with this, and he said, I didn't do that. And I said, Mr. President, yes, you did. It was an executive order, 3 weeks ago. And he goes, no, I didn't do that. And he's arguing with me. I said, Mr. President, respectfully, could I go out here and ask your secretary to print it out? We'll read it together. You definitely did that. And he goes, oh, you talk about natural gas. Yes, sir. He said, no, you misunderstand. He said, what I did is I signed this thing we're gonna conduct a study on the effects of LNG. I said, no, you're not, sir. You paused it. I know. I have the export terminals in my state. I talked to those people this morning. This is doing massive damage to our economy, national security. It occurred to me, Barry, he was not lying to me. He genuinely did not know what he had signed. And I walked out of that meeting with fear and loathing because I thought, we're in serious trouble. Who is running the country? I don't know who put the paper in front of him, but he didn't know.
Who is running the country? This is in the NWO series of tabs. Okay? So that's why, right? Who's running the country? I think we know who's running the country. Yesterday, Bill Gates was making the rounds talking about how he had a meeting with Donald Trump, and it was really great and super enlightening and the whole deal. And until I hear from Trump, because there's due diligence you need to do, right? And so meetings don't necessarily mean capitulation, right? Necessarily. So it's interesting. And so anti-WEF says Bill Gates on digital public infrastructure in India. And this is how to phase people into things like the facial recognition, things like mass databases. So kids in school now, their schooling is on Google Classroom. First question I have, are those servers in China? Because I don't think they're in the United States. I think those servers are foreign. I think that, and they're certainly not in Canada, right? Like, I don't think that those servers are governed by Canadian law. So like when you have your kid in a Google Suite classroom thing, I think all of that data is like, if you could have that metadata, you know, when they log in, when they leave, et cetera, it might be stored on servers that aren't local to your school, certainly servers that aren't local to your geographic area, and maybe servers that aren't even in Canada. And so what does that mean about the data? Can it be used to train Chinese AIs? Would they use it anyway? What kind of access does it, like, what kind of information does that give about your kids? You know, like all of their school data, et cetera, et cetera. So like, I'm concerned about how easy it is to consolidate all of this information already. And like, now we've got databases with digital ID, with your driver's license stuff, with all of your other government stuff. And how easy is that going to be to hack? But Bill Gates walks people through, it's only a minute. Do we want to listen to it? It's 3 phases of how to onboard people and get everybody kind of participating in this thing. And you know, like John Connor doesn't go on grid because he doesn't want the Terminators to find him. It feels like and the same in Demolition Man. You've got the Edgar Friendlies who live underneath kind of the San Angeles utopia mirage up top, right? Like the utopia only exists because there's this underclass that they're eliminating from society, that they're pretending doesn't exist. So anyway, I feel like we're going to have this digital ID group of people who are the chosen ones, right? The people who are participating in society and allowed to participate in society. And then you're going to get your Edgar Friendlies. And I hope that that's wrong. But this is Bill Gates talking about how to do this kind of stuff in India with big consolidated data and server farms and all the rest of it. He says, phase 1, identity and payments. All government programs are digitized, private payments, fees, and fines. So give us your bank account and we'll be able to put money into it and also take money out of it. Right? Like, and you know, remove your fines, pay your fines easy, and all the rest. Pay your taxes easy. It's meant to be convenient for you and them. Right? Phase 2: register title and land, tutoring children, health records, tutoring children, educating children. Already there. Health records, getting there. Connecting all those means a single ledger that they control. Mass data, huge amounts of data, right? And then phase 3, AI analysis of the giant databases they've been collecting, all to manipulate you. Yeah, yes. And they can pull those strings because they can see what people are doing and how many people fall into, manipulatable buckets, I guess, because there are going to be people like me, right? And it's difficult to manipulate me, probably. Maybe I'm very easy to manipulate. I don't know. And then there are going to be people who are going to be easy to manipulate, and they're going to target the easy to manipulate people, right? The people watching The View, right? Easier to manipulate than me, probably. So it's interesting, and I think we're watching a play. I think we're watching some kind of like maneuvering back and forth, et cetera, et cetera. The Tik Tok Ban comes into it as well, but we'll talk about that later in the show. Let's talk about Trump really quickly. Amuse says the Secret Service could not guarantee the president-elect's safety and has canceled the swearing-in ceremony at the Rotunda. They are considering canceling the watching party at the Capital One Arena. The post-inauguration events have not been canceled. These rumors are not from my sources, but those being reported by others. Same sources that first reported that the outdoor ceremony would be canceled. That being said, consider this low confidence. I'll update as information comes in. So they wanted Trump sworn in at the Rotunda, which is at the Washington Capitol. I've been there. I went there in 2012. It was an American history tour. We did Boston, Gettysburg, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia. I saw the Liberty Bell. We went to the Capitol buildings, went to the post office. It was cool. We did a whole bunch of stuff. I did not go to Comet Ping Pong Pizza. I did not, and I'm glad I didn't either. Anyway, regardless, very interesting stuff going on with the safety stuff. First, they move it inside, and then they say, no, we're not even going to do anything. We're just going to swear him in. We're going to just swear him in the Oval Office, and that'll be that. He'll get right to work. He'll be on the phone during his swearing in. right? Crazy stuff. And they could do it. They could do it in a very small ceremony with just, insiders in the White House, and that's that. Who knows? We'll have to see. But we don't have long to wait. We'll see. We'll see tomorrow, right? My show tomorrow will not have anything really to do with the swearing in, although a lot of people are saying there's going to be big bombshells today about all sorts of stuff. I don't know. I haven't seen anything. I didn't see any big bombshells yesterday of Antifa protests in 10 cities or anything like that. I didn't see anything like that. So interesting stuff going on, but we'll see. It could be a lot of rumor and no follow through. Who knows? Libs of TikTok is responding to that Speaker Johnson video I showed you. She says, oh, holy cow, this is a massive scandal. We have no clue who is running our country. We have no clue who was running the country for the last 4 years. So it's the NWO. It's the deep state. It's the unelected bureaucrats. It's the Blinkens and the CIA directors and all the people who were in the room meeting with the Speaker of the House and the people who were worried when the president asked them all to leave. Those were the people who were actually running the country. And that's not the system that is supposed to be happening in the United States. So Colin Rugg is reporting on this as well, talking about all of this controversy. He says, during a one-on-one meeting, Speaker Johnson asked President Biden why he paused LNG exports to Europe. Says Biden was completely unaware that he had done so. The United States has not had a president for 4 years. Johnson says Biden was completely unaware of an executive order he signed. The comments from Johnson come during an interview with Barry Weiss. Johnson said after fighting for 9 weeks with Biden's staff, he was finally able to get a meeting, blah, blah, blah. We already know all the rest of that. But it's just interesting how the deep state is boxing out people who may want to actually get done the will of the people, and how they're running the United States not transparently at all, right? And not in the system that they're supposed to be running it in. And that's interesting. And here's Brittany, and she's concerned that the World Economic Forum has just announced yesterday, January 17th, or not yesterday, sorry, it's the 19th today, January 17th, which is a symbolic day for Trump. Okay. Sometimes when things happen on the 17th, it's supposed to happen that way because Trump's lucky number is 17. Look it up. But World Economic Forum says President-elect of the United States will virtually join the WEF's annual meeting 2025 in Davos. Find out more about the WEF 2025 here. So that should be an interesting watch. I don't think he's going to bend the knee. I don't think, I'm not worried that he's going to say, oh, me and my friend Klaus here. You know what I mean? I don't think that's what he's going to say. Remember when he went to the United Nations and he burned down the barn a couple of times over? With his rhetoric, of course. That hopefully that's what we see from this speech, right? I'll be disappointed if he goes and bends the knee. That'd be interesting, but not good, right? So we'll see. We'll see. Davos is happening soon, right? So the president-elect is going to have some words to say, and he's going to say them. So that'll be interesting. Let's talk about the tariff threats that Donald Trump is pushing on Canada and Mexico too. And Paul is responding to this news piece. Rachel Notley joins new Canada-U.S. Council while Danielle Smith ditches Team Canada tariff response. It's not a Team Canada approach if Danielle Smith's not in it, right? Jeepers creepers. Paul says Justin Trudeau has appointed the hated former Alberta NDP leader Rachel Notley and her former NDP chief of staff to the totally bogus and misnamed Team Canada. This shows Ottawa's utter contempt for Alberta and exposes Team Canada as a destructive bunch of Marxist losers. Yeah, that's a pretty good description. I think that's a pretty good description. Yep. Mark says Donald Trump absolutely despises Chrystia Freeland. Guaranteed if she called him, he would not pick up the phone. The first deal they made was before Freeland froze Canadian bank accounts. Trump does not work with dictators. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Chrystia Freeland can get any kind of traction with Donald Trump. Although is she on the Team Canada tariff committee? I don't think so, right? She's focusing on her leadership campaign. Pierre Poilievre says, what a stupid blunder by the Liberal government. After refusing to give the RCMP and border agents the resources they need for 9 years, they rushed to obtain Chinese drones that the Americans refused to work with for security reasons. The Liberals are sleeping soundly while they paralyze Parliament. They are not worth the cost. And so this is from CBC Info, Canada somewhere, I guess. It's French. And it says Canada bought Chinese drones that are not usable for the border. So yeah, crazy stuff happening, right? And I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed. Pierre Poilievre says, again, this week I visited another BC lumber mill sold out by Freeland when she backed down to Trump and signed on to a trade deal that allowed unjust American softwood tariffs to stay and rise. Remember, Harper got the tariffs lifted. Liberals let the Americans slap them back on. Ignore the grandstanding. Freeland and Trudeau are weak and they will back down to Trump again. So yeah, I don't know. Our politics here with the softwood and like the minor niggling, I have a hard time getting behind. We are having a situation where Pierre Poilievre is promising to do basically what the Liberals are promising to do, which is retaliatory tariff packages. And Poilievre is calling the Liberals weak, where I think, again, we're just missing it. Donald Trump is asking for very basic things, which Canada should want too. And instead of delivering on those basic things and saying, we will work with you and do whatever you think that we need to do to avoid these tariffs, except for sign the country over to you. But we'll do a whole lot of whatever else you want in order to get this, this tariff thing done. And there should have been multiple trade missions. There should have been multiple people. They should have been golfing with him. They should have been sending him baskets, right? Dear Donald Trump, baskets of Big Macs. Dear Donald Trump, we heard you like Big Macs and Diet Coke. Here are 25 Big Macs and 25 Diet Cokes for your consumption. We hope that you don't put 25% tariffs on Canada. We love you, right? Like, we should be doing something instead of insulting the man. We should be doing something about the things that he's requested instead of putting together retaliatory tariffs. And we don't have, it doesn't seem like we don't have a choice. Pierre Poilievre's not sending gift baskets, right? Like he's not saying, Donald Trump, I'd love to go golfing with you. Come to one of our beautiful golf courses out here. It's not quite like yours, but it's not as good as yours, but come and we'll golf or whatever. You should be figuring out a way to treat with this person. And I understand they're trying to represent the strong position and all the rest, but I don't think that we're in a strong position. So highlight the benefits and highlight the potential negatives. But somebody was saying yesterday, if we turn off the oil and gas, they're going to get it from somewhere else, and then they're not going to want it from us when we turn it on again. And so it would be stupid of us to do that, and I think that that's accurate. Here's CBC reporting Canada's preparing retaliatory tariffs to unveil as soon as Trump's inauguration day. Initial counter tariffs would apply to $37 billion in U.S. goods. So counter tariffs package is ready to go. We're ready for this, they say. I'm not holding my breath. 222 Minutes says, I'll ask the obvious question. Would securing the border cost more or less than $37 billion? Yes, less, I think. Much less. Much less. Let's talk about leadership. And I'm going to include this in the main show because I think we have to talk about this because Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland and Karina Gould are all disasters, and none of them are a good option for Canada. They're all terrible. All of them are terrible. Ryan Garrettson says Freeland changed her profile picture. I guess the red washed out devil look didn't go over well. And so Chrystia Freeland's back to, she looks younger. I don't know what's going on. Is she using grok to touch up the image a little bit? Brittany's got a wonderful, I think probably one of the best images of Chrystia Freeland I've seen. It looks like a Kids in the Hall sketch, but it's actually just her between twitches and then a red overlay. It's pretty funny. Here she is Chrystia Freeland says, join the fight for Canada. And this is her campaign thing. We're going to listen to as much of it as I can stomach. Here we go. There's a lot of reimagined history and facts here, in my opinion, but here we go.
I'm going to let you in on a little secret.
She sounds like the Wicked Witch of the West.
I'm going to let you in on a little secret.
My pretties? Sorry, that was just me. Okay.
Donald Trump doesn't like me very much.
Canada, we don't like their representative very much.
I'm a tough negotiator. During the first Trump administration, I fought hard to protect Canadian jobs, the Canadian economy, and our way of life. And we won. I left Trudeau's cabinet because I know what we need to do to win that fight again. Donald Trump and his billionaire buddies think they can push us around.
Now she sounds like Jagmeet Singh.
Trump thinks we're for sale, but he can take what isn't his.
No. Trump thinks he shouldn't be subsidizing Canada to the tune of $200 billion a year because that's too much for a foreign country. But if we were a state, it wouldn't be too much. Right? You see? That's not what you're saying. Also, this cut is very suggestive. Maybe you can't see because hold on, let's see if I can fix this here. There you go. It's a little suggestive. right? It's a little suggestive. I'm saying like Rachel Gilmore is giving her some pointers or something like that. I don't know.
I'm not going to let him. We're a proud country. The true north, strong and free. A country of smart, caring, and hardworking people. A country that gets big things done. A country worth fighting for. But Pierre Poilievre, he'll bow down to Trump and sell us out. This moment matters for all of us. I'm running to be leader of the Liberal Party and our next Prime Minister. I'm in this to fight for you, to fight for Canadians, to fight for Canada. Join me. Join the fight.
Is that communist China red or is that liberal red? I can't tell. The pleb says Mark Carney's paid influencers network has been exposed. Do you believe that that's sincere, that she wants to fight for Canada? My question lately is, what does that mean? Does that mean fighting for Chinese influence in our elected officials? Does that mean fighting for people who are going to use the War Measures Act against peaceful truckers, but who ignore Palestinian war calls on our streets for years on end? Is that what we're fighting for? Does that mean fighting for 50% taxation and going up to 90% taxation? Is that what we're fighting for? Are we fighting for having no white people and being called racist if you are white? Is that what we're fighting for, Chrystia Freeland? Because I'm really not interested in any of that. And that's what you guys represent. I think that the government hates Canadians. I think they hate us. And Chrystia Freeland fighting for Canadians, that's rich. I don't think that that's true at all. It doesn't sound genuine because she hates us. She hates us, honestly. Anyway, let's talk about Mark Carney. Mark Carney hates us too. He likes our money. He just hates us. The pleb says, Mark Carney's paid influencer network has been exposed. Look how they're tweeting out in the same approved script. Look how they're quote tweeting the same post. I wonder how much they're being paid per tweet. Does this look suspicious to you? So Dale Johnson says, support for Mark Carney across Canada is overwhelming. The electoral tides are turning. The future is brighter. Hope and electricity fill the air. Real solutions are on the way. Canadians are coming together and nothing can stop us. So this is another guy, Dr. Matthew. Support for Mark Carney is across Canada is overwhelming. The electoral tides are turning. The future is brighter. Hope and electricity fill the air. Same thing, right? And this guy says, I can't make this stuff up in my feed. So in his feed, right below the pleb's warning about this, he gets another person. Matthew Johnson. So one of the examples in the thread doing the same thing. So very interesting stuff going on there with a paid. It's called AstroTurfed because AstroTurf looks like grassroots, but it's not grassroots, right? It's AstroTurfed. So an AstroTurfed campaign. Dan Albus talks about the Maxwell connection, and he says, yes, he was. National Post says, Carney's in a picture with Ghislaine Maxwell, the baggage Mark Carney is bringing to his prime ministerial bid. Why is that okay? Why are the Liberals? I mean, I guess me or somebody like me, Greg could do this much better than I could do it. Should call around and ask the Liberals how they feel about Mark Carney's connection to Ghislaine Maxwell and if they support somebody who was supplying underage women for Epstein's client list to be the leader of the party. Somebody who's in pictures and whose wife is, buddy with Ghislaine Maxwell, or whose wife's sister is buddy with Ghislaine Maxwell. And they did all sorts of enough to have things together, right? So that's interesting. Some people were claiming to be friends with me, and somebody asked for a picture of them with me, and that was the end of the thing. They were like, "Do you have a picture with them?" And they were saying that they were friends, long-standing friends. And do you have a picture with Mark? And they were like, "No, not one I could find easily." And I was like, "Oh, okay, well then you're not friends, right?" I looked at the post years later, and I was like, "Oh wow, that's interesting." So I thought it was funny. Regardless, so Mark Carney's got pictures with Ghislaine Maxwell, so not weird. CBC Watcher says, new CPC Carney ad drops, and here it is from the other day, 43 seconds.
Mark Carney enters the fray. The Bank of Canada's former governor takes a critical role to help the Prime Minister.
The Liberal Party has announced Mark Carney will lead a new task force on economic growth.
The deficit ballooning to nearly $62 billion. $61.9 billion. That's the deficit.
Up dramatically from an estimated $40 billion in this spring's budget, thanks in part to $24.2 billion in newly announced spending.
More just like Justin branding. I think it's weak. I don't think it's going to be talk of the town at the water cooler or anything like that. Brittany does a deep dig on Mark Carney, and she says, we all know Mark Carney is a member of the WEF, but have you heard of the Group of 30? So Mark Carney is a member of the Group of 30, right? And that's way down at the bottom, listed among all of his other chairs and boardships and all the rest of it. And she says, what's that, right? The Group of 30 was established by the Rockefeller Foundation. Oh, here we go. It's a very high-level meeting of global elite, mostly central bankers. Most terms are 5 years. He signed on 2 years ago. Mark sure is a busy guy. He's also the chair of the Chatham House Senior Advisors. Chatham rule means it's a big secret and no one can talk about it. It's a big house of secrets. He's also a member of the Bilderberg Foundation and joins those meetings. They're also very secretive, but for reasons I did not see coming. Hold on. I didn't know which thing she didn't see coming there. Brittany continues. She says, the Bilderberg Group was founded by Prince Bernard of the Netherlands, a German-born erstwhile Nazi. How do you feel about your likely next prime minister going to secret meetings and holding so many positions? Are these conflict of interest? He's a globalist, as you can see. The opposition has been accused of being populist, like that's a bad thing. Think about it. Right? There you go. That's true. He's long in the tooth. Yellow in the tooth. Long in the tooth means he's got lots of experience with globalism, right? And he's so long in the tooth, he's signing our $20 bills. Brittany says, I'm an outsider. Yeah, sure, Mark Carney. There's your signature right there, insider. The insider of the insiders. Andy Lee is comparing Mark Carney's fundraising haul with the truckers' fundraising haul. Mark Carney says, deeply grateful for your support to this campaign. We've surpassed $125,000 in donations in just 24 hours. Thanks to you. Let's keep this momentum going. MarkCarney.ca donate. And Andy Lee says, convoy donations closing in on $9 million after 4 days. Yep. So there's a lot of support for the truckers, much more support for the truckers than for Mark Carney, old Yellowtooth himself, Mark Carney. Vesper is talking about Karina Gould's branding, and it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And like sometimes I feel bad tearing apart the bad communication, or these people are saying this, but actually they're saying this. But this is more funny. Like to me, this is actually more funny and not cruel. Really, it's good feedback. I almost would hesitate to tell them how bad this is because it's really bad and you don't want them fixing it, but they're going to fix it. Probably. They'd be stupid not to fix it. This is free advice worth thousands of dollars. Here we go for Karina Gould's leadership campaign. There we go.
So let's talk about the mother of all bizarro logos. And I can't stress this enough. This logo is wrong in every single way. First of all, what is this? That looks like a constipated K. This is not red. This is like a leaf. Pink, a very deep pink, bordering on red. And why are all the letters tall? That makes no sense. What is it, because you're tall or something? Secondly, if you're going to go sharp, you don't go round. And again, one last thing that I really found bizarre is, what's the purpose of being this far away? Why is your R lined right in the middle of these two letters? That is unbelievably awkward. And when you look at this, you go, okay, that makes no sense. Why are you doing it this way? Well, I mean, at this point, everything about this is bizarre.
Scrap it. Scrap the whole thing. That was Vesper. He's a media guy who does kind of the same thing I do. He's got lots more people who watch him than I do, or than me, though. I think he's got like 40,000 followers or something. Oh, 12,000. Double mine. But still, it's interesting. He's breaking that down. I think he's right. I don't think he's wrong about that at all. Here's Lori Goldstein. The conservative election ads are creating themselves. Liberal House Leader Karina Gould says Trump won't listen to journalists, Christina Freeland, and central bankers, Mark Carney. In a swipe at Liberal leadership rivals, Canadians don't trust the Liberal Party of Canada. That's her quote. That's Karina Gould's quote, right? Like, how much damage are you trying to do to the Liberal Party? I mean, they've done a whole lot of damage to themselves. They've shot themselves in the foot, in the knee, both kneecaps, right? In the leg, in the upper leg. Gould says Trump won't listen to journalists. Yeah. Fresh out of the gate from launching her Liberal leadership bid, Karina Gould suggested her two main opponents' backgrounds would do little to gain favor of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. I'm not sure that journalists and central bankers are the kind of people that Donald Trump listens to, the Ontario MP said in an interview airing on Sunday. And I'll just scroll down a little bit. I'll be very honest with you, she says. Canadians don't trust the Liberal Party of Canada right now. We've gotten further away from the grassroots and talking about things that Canadians care about. Gould has held a series of cabinet positions, most recently on the government's as the government House leader, but she said she's stepping aside from cabinet to focus on her run. She suggested her policy ideas might not necessarily align with where the party has been, so she's running away from the carbon tax. When it comes to one of the government's signature environmental policies, the consumer carbon tax, Gould suggested she'd replace the unpopular program. What I want to do is make sure that we're helping Canadians make the decisions that they want, said Gould, while teasing that she'd have more to say later for her climate change platform. Ridiculous. So the Liberals have collapsed and are running on anything but the carbon tax now. Not a carbon tax at all. We can't do a carbon tax. That's crazy town. Here is Stacey, and she says, so the three prominent headliners running for Liberal leadership and possibly the Prime Minister of Canada are all running against their own policies that they clapped like seals about up until 2 minutes ago. This is like Kamala Harris campaigning all over again. So it is funny, but the Liberals are doing a terrible job governing and now running for leadership. Alex Zoltan says, who would you prefer as the next Trudeau Liberal leader? Carbon tax Mark Carney, Hurricane Karina Gould. Carney gets 3.4, Gould gets 4.2, Chrystia Freebase 12.4%, and the guy who can't speak English, the Indian guy who can't speak English, 80%. So jeepers creepers, right? Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful